Hey guys, Ridiculous Badger coming at you from Planet 545. Let's talk about your research. Why should you main one troop type? And when I say this, it's really not maining, guys. It's play one troop type. The reason for this is you want to get to this mastery, and you want to get this maxed out as quickly as you can. The mastery scales at a much higher rate, or the Mastery 2, rather, scales at a much higher rate than the lower researches. You want to put your resources that you have into pushing forward and unlocking those prerequisites. So check this out. With Mastery 2, and I main infantry, as you guys probably know by now, I'm a huge lover of infantry. If you're not prepared to put a ton of money in this game, in my opinion, you should be playing infantry. If you're free to play, you should be playing infantry. And I could get to that a little bit more later. But at any rate, your Mastery Level 2, at its maximum level, gives an additional 100% bonus to every stat on the troop, which is huge. When you compare this to a lower research, like, say, of this airship crit, I almost never play airships. You can see I have it at level 3. To go from 3 to 4, I'm going to increase my airship crit by 1%. And granted, this is a very cheap upgrade, as you will find when you get up to the Mastery 2 and to the higher levels of that. It's going to cost upwards of 40 and 45 million food, 45 million parts, etc., etc. So this is relatively cheap. And while it is very cheap, it doesn't compare cost versus benefit wise when you take a look at the Mastery 2. What you're going to need to do here is make sure that your stats are as high as possible. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that your research is as high as possible. You want to get to that level 2 master. You want to get that maxed out. And even ideally for me, when I was early game, I dabbled in multiple troop types. I thought, oh, if I'm unlocking tier 3, I should unlock all the tier 3. And if I'm unlocking tier 4, no, go straight at 1. Don't deviate. Make it as powerful as you can, because as you're going to find, the way that you play this game, it's not how the devs originally designed it. You're not going to be playing it with multiple troop types on the same commander, by and large. Obviously, we all know that there are a few tactics where it actually does come into play. But in general, those tactics play around with gear mods or gem mods, and they don't have anything to do with the specific research anyway. So when and if you do play those strats, you're not playing them for the stats. You are playing them for the troop type and how it impacts how other troop types interact with it. But when you play one troop type, your stats are going to be higher than if you split them up. Here's my T1 Ranger, and you can see I've got max research, so 240 dodge, 240 attack, everything else is 120. Every single troop type, when you max it out, is going to have 240 on 2 of the stats and 120 on the rest of them. But if you take a look at, say, my air, which I never ever play, it's so pitifully low. In a case where I put X amount of resources into gear and X amount of, and let's say Y amount of resources into skills and Z amount of resources into leadership, if I'm facing somebody else that, all things being equal, puts the same amount of resources into gear that I do, the same amount of resources into skills that I do, and the same amount of resources into leadership that I do, but they also play way into the research angle of it, they're going to beat me basically every single time. And that's just based on raw stats. So that's why it's so important to keep laser focused in this game. You always have to assume that the enemy is going to be focused, that the enemy knows how to play, and that the enemy is going to be sending their best commander, their best march at you. You can't plan for attacking or being attacked by the enemy's middle of the road. That's simply not a competitive strategy.